Welcome to the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. Today, we are thrilled to have Ryan Skinner as our guest. Ryan is renowned for his insightful thought leadership and dynamic presentation skills, bringing a unique blend of expertise and charisma that captivates audiences. With extensive experience in the financial industry, Ryan deeply understands the challenges and opportunities within that sector, making his presentations both relevant and impactful. Ryan's ability to distill complex concepts into relatable anecdotes and practical takeaways ensures that attendees, regardless of their background, leave with a clear and enriched understanding of the subject matter. What sets Ryan apart is his natural ability to connect with people on a personal level, conveying his passion and enthusiasm in a way that leaves a lasting impression. His authentic and engaging speaking style fosters a sense of connection and rapport, making him a magnet for positive feedback and a draw for event attendees. Through his transformative journey, Ryan has discovered a profound sense of purpose and a deep connection with divinity and humanity, empowering him to operate on a whole new level in various aspects of his life. He is dedicated to making a positive impact on people's lives, offering support to those struggling with depression, anxiety, and addiction. Join us as we delve into Ryan's journey, his insights on the financial industry, and his thoughts on the future. Join us as we get inappropriate. Welcome to the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. I'm Paul Angelle, your host, and today I'm really excited. I've got Mr. Ryan Skinner with us today. Ryan, just so I don't have to do it and run the risk of messing up, why don't you tell everybody where you're at and how you got there?
I'll probably mess it up. So if you can't tell by the fact that I speak fast and I don't pronounce R's when I talk about my car, I'm from Boston. I do a little of everything. So, I hate the term entrepreneur because you and I both know it's like something people use generically. But guys like us, we are in different industries. For me, I'm in financial services. I do retirement income planning. Invested in a couple other firms. But, I fell in love with coaching. What happened was I had a lot of challenges in my life. I went off the rails, which I'm sure we'll get into. And when I rebuilt it, I built it at a level that people were shocked. They're like, hey, if he can do it, anyone can do it. And truth is, if I can do it, you and I will know. If I can do it, anyone can do it. We're unique, but we're not unique. The only difference is like changing your thought pattern, how you do things. But most people have talents inside; they're just not pulled out of them. And so I do a lot of coaching. I do some speaking. I'm fortunate enough to do some motivational speaking because of my history. And I'm a dad. That's probably my first job.
Okay, so getting into background, can you share a bit about that background? What initially drew you to the financial industry, and what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you first started your career?
So what drew me to the industry was simple. I had learning challenges, dyslexia, reading comprehension issues. My seventh grade teacher knew I was good with math. She was a Catholic school teacher. They don't get Social Security in this state. They only get pensions. So she wanted to create her own Social Security. She wanted to invest all her own money and manage it. She read book after book. One book said you can draw with a crayon, you can buy it. And any seventh grader can draw with a crayon. And this lady was so concerned about my low self-esteem. She taught me about investments. She knew I was gifted with numbers. I've always been a freak with numbers. And so she gave me fake money. I bought, a subscription to Investors Business Daily. I bought Chrysler because they not only made cars, but their parts were sold to other companies for repairs. I bought Nike, Coca-Cola, Gatorade. Jordan was great. And the next thing I knew, I beat the S&P. She writes a letter to the author of the book. He happens to be retiring because he reached the same age his father was when his dad had a heart attack. He happened to be Peter Lynch of Magellan Fidelity, and boom, next thing I knew, I'm meeting with Peter and I'm getting mentored. And seventh grade, I suddenly knew what I was going to do, which is exciting in a way, but you also got to think when people talk about the college experience. I'm like, well, I got to work at 6 a.m. I traded till 2 p.m. I went to school in the evenings, bartended on the weekends. Like I never had, so I was never really a kid in that sense because I knew at a young age what I would do. I came from a lower middle class family, so it opened all kinds of opportunities. So I found something I was good at, I liked and paid well. It was kind of a no-brainer. So that's really how I landed in this industry. And, I love it. I mean, my day-to-day stuff is meeting with people near retirement or retired and helping them to live the life they want. I don't like it nowadays with inflation. I come across people who, before you had 300-400 grand saved, you could retire. Now it's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And like, I'm just having to say I'm sorry to people as if it's my fault. So there are a lot of people I have to turn away, but overall, I like what I do, and so that's how I landed here. Um, it's the start. Early on, when you get into the financial services industry, they tell you to tap into your natural market, call it friends, family. My mom was a housekeeper. My aunt was a housekeeper. My mother's friends were housekeepers. Like there was no natural market. There was nobody who had money. They all loved me. They would have given it, but if they had it, but they didn't have any money to invest. That was the biggest challenge, the biggest gift. And the reason being is the gentleman who brought me in the business was like a second father to me. And he said to me, I'm going to introduce you to a guy who owns an insurance agency. You'll do financial services for his clients and you'll make money. You give him a split. And that's how I built my book. And then later on, I kind of flatlined. I had these lawyers and CPAs that would give me clients. The problem was they give me one client a month, but they were monster clients. So I'd work like one day a month and then I'd have money come in and then I'd have the biggest challenge was time and money. I had too much money on my hands because I wasn't smart. I didn't buy a nice house. I had a house, but I didn't do things that were smart investments. I lived fast, high on the hog. And with the time I had, it just led to me drinking too much and eventually having some surgeries and the opioids into the picture. And then I had time, money, and drugs. Then I had drugs and less money. And then I had no money and less drugs. And eventually I had nothing.
With regard to thought leadership and presentation skills, I mean, this is a process. It's a journey. Um, how did you develop your thought leadership and what I've heard described as a dynamic presentation skill, your public speaking over the years? How did you develop that?
God works for people. So the guy who brought me in the business originally, he had charisma, he had a presence, and I was a shy, awkward kid, very nervous, very insecure. And he said, "I'm going to teach you how to have a presence." And I didn't know what he meant. But over time, I learned how to emulate and just have my own vibe, but have a way when I walked into a room that was okay with me. You and I both know that to be successful in business, you don't have to be the brightest guy, the best talker. You have to be able to connect well with people and be sincere. If you bullshit, people will read that. And if they don't read that, somehow call it God, spirit of the universe, you won't line up with people well. I was very lucky that when I lost everything, all I had was me. I mean, I remember at one point being in jail. I was in the whole solitary confinement. They don't even give you a shirt. You're in underwear and you're locked in this place alone. And I just think, you got to give me something to read, something to write, something. I want to hang myself. He said, "Listen, I can give you a Bible." And I'm not a overly religious guy. I believe there's something out there without a doubt, but I don't necessarily know which religion has it pinned down or if any of them do. But I started reading and I started just highlighting things. And I was like, wow, like these things give me hope. These things give me, energy, the hope that there's something better. I started praying more. When I was able to get out of there, I was able to have books sent in. And originally I was going to read tough guy books like about Whitey Bulger, about gangsters, but instead I read about things like one book was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways, about women like who went through breast cancer, how they changed their mindset and how you overcome fear. Then I read another book she recommended, another book. Next thing I knew, I started taking notes. And I started applying it. I tell people to be where I'm at. You know what? You do what I do. Get up first thing in the morning when the sun's coming up, maybe before. Spend an hour in prayer, meditation, journaling, at least 45 minutes. Then work out for 45 minutes. Then eat something healthy. Like if you're willing to do all those things, you'll have them. But for me, it takes a lot to dial in. The beginning of the day and the end of the day are very committed to really routine and training my mind. And when I started speaking, I started giving workshops for my industry back in 2012 because I had no clients when I got sober and I had no one was referring you business when you get out of jail and you're a heroin addict. So I figured, hey,
People are weird like that.
Yeah, it's funny how they don't trust you like that. And I get it. I used to say to people, I get it. But I knew that I connected well with people. I didn't have the confidence to get up and speak, but I had nothing to lose. I was on food stamps. I was on Mass Health. My house was in foreclosure. I didn't have a car. And I remember my first one cost $6,800. I made $6,300. And I lost money, but I remember I'm good at this. And the second one cost like $6-7 grand. I made $45,000. I'm like, I'm really good at this. And I started doing them more and more. And it just kind of snowballed. And next thing I knew, I was doing something. And other advisors were saying to me, people in my industry and like securities advisors were also calling me saying, "Hey, how are you doing this? How are you growing at the rate you're growing?" I'm like, honestly, it's God, it's spirit of the universe, something. I'm tapping into something bigger than me. Because I have the integrity to turn something away if it's not the right fit. I mean, I turned a client away the other day. It was like a $20,000 sale, but I knew I wasn't going to achieve what they wanted. I knew a year out they might be like, they wouldn't be disappointed, but they wouldn't be happy. And it's knowing what you don't know. So I started doing that more, and then somebody said, you'd probably be a good, speaker, motivational speaker, you're pretty open about the fact you were a heroin addict, that you went to prison for fighting and violence. You're okay with it. And it's true. Whatever your biggest insecurity is, if you're okay with it, you can help somebody else. So when I start my financial workshops, I talk about my childhood and then learning through Peter Lynch. When I start, one of the recent events I at before, as I was walking up, it had different mug shots of mine. It's crazy. You can see a progression. At first, I'm a kid getting arrested for DUI. At the end, my head's shaved and I'm intense and I'm going to prison. And it's like, wow. And then I walk up and I'm like, my first words were, I wasn't supposed to be a junkie. I was supposed to be an addict. And right there, kind of people were grabbed, like, holy crap. And I said, I also wasn't supposed to be a millionaire, to be honest with you. And all of these happened because of my mindset. It happened. I became all those bad things because my mindset was sick. When I trained my mind to get better, it's how we talk to ourselves. It's very easy, especially working for yourself. You know this. It's very easy to get down, you take a beating. We don't get the luxury of I'll give you an example. A friend of mine went through a divorce. I'm going through one right now. He's in the union, so he got to take months off for mental health and work on it. He's like, well, why don't you take time off? I go, then I'd starve, and my daughter would starve. And he's like, well, you have money saved. I'm like, it's not how I'm wired. I'd love to be able to do it. I'd love to be able to take time and do self-help, but it's just not who I am.
Is there one presentation that you've done or one instance where you felt it was more impactful, or is there one that just stands out?
There are a few. It's funny. One of them, I don't even think I took money for. I was speaking to a school, and I talked to the kids about the first day of using and the last day of using. And I said, when you start, nobody thinks when they smoke that first joint. Like if I didn't get into drugs in high school, but the kids that smoke a joint, they never think they'll put a needle in their arm. And a lot of people smoke weed, they never do. But every heroin addict I've ever known had started with weed, and so you just never know the progression. Like when the light goes off and you know that you're drinking different than other people, when you're looking forward to the weekend, most people are just going to school. So that was a pretty impactful speech because a kid said, you don't look like a heroin addict. I rolled up my sleeve. I said, well, it's a track mark. I said, 12, 15 years later, there's still a track mark there. So I've earned that. I made that mistake. And one of the most impactful ones I did in terms of the insurance industry or the financial sector was I just said, why not me? A lot of the markets were down at the time. People were worried. It seemed like there was no more money to be made because it had peaked. It was starting to come down a little. And people said, well, it's so hard to make money. Most people don't want to leave their other advisors. They don't want to leave their other insurance person because they're doing well. And how do you get new business? I said, well, why not me? Everybody said, why not me? What can I do? Because there's going to be somebody out there I'm going to get in front of them. I'm going to attract. They're going to be like, wow, that's the right fit. And they walk in and they feel like family. Like a client came in last Friday, second appointment, they just knew they belonged here. And there's going to be somebody who comes in and says, yeah, they're just not for me. Just not my speed. I want a guy who wears a shirt and tie, a blazer, and I'm not fucking doing that. I work for myself. I'm not doing it at 44 years old. If I give certain presentations, I'll do that. But I'm sure I'm not sitting in my office. I dress well, but you know what I mean? Being authentic, and I think that's the why not me, is like, why not just be myself and let that come through? And so I talk about where I was, what it was like walking down the street on a busy street in Boston where all the financial people are, and I'm in a tracksuit and flip-flops walking 3 miles to a place because a friend of mine that was in recovery worked at a hot dog stand. I got 2 hot dogs and a soda every day for lunch, and I couldn't even afford the train fare for like 75 cents, let alone, I was getting it was horrible. It was horrible. My teeth were smashed out from being stabbed. It was just, but on the flip side, when I started really thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe there's something better. Maybe I could come back. Maybe this would be a great comeback story. I think the biggest thing I see is people put limits on themselves. If I could make 200,000 in my business, I'd profit 100 grand. That's awesome. Now in Boston, you can't do that. It's not sustainable. You need to do more because the cost of living is insane. But what people don't realize is when you take the cap off it, I always said my business could ever do 800 or a million, but then I kept this limit on it. When I started just going through the process and not worrying about the results and let God handle the results, it got a lot better. And do something you enjoy. The process, if you fall in love with the process, you don't have to love what you do, you have to love the process. You have to take pride in it. The younger generation, they don't leave their mark on things. Like I have kids that work for me, they'll be doing things like the application gets kicked back. And I always say that if I'm going to do it, even if I fucking hate what I'm doing, I'm going to give it my best. Or I won't do it. But I'm sure as hell I'm not going to half-ass it, have my name on it.
What are some of the most significant challenges and opportunities that you're seeing in the financial industry today?
I think one of the biggest challenges is so many people kind of like, let's go back to 22. The beginning of 22, January, I think it was, more seniors put their money in the stock market than ever. Okay. July of 22, or August, when the market was at the low point, more people pulled out than ever. The problem is this: the market's at a certain height. How much higher can it go? I don't know. I tell people I'm not going to be the guy who's going to get you 20%, but I am going to be the guy who gets you anywhere from 5 to 8, and you're going to keep it. The next year, if it goes down, you keep that 5 to 8. So I own part of a firm that does the security side? Yeah. Do I want to be part of it? No. I think it's too volatile. It doesn't make sense. I mean, look at the world around us. People are living longer, so Social Security is smoking us. Medicare, Medicaid, then so 96% of our money every year that goes to taxes goes to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the goddamn deficit. And then people don't want to face it, but the reality is you have two options on deficit. Either you tax the shit out of Americans and you double it. Because, I was fortunate enough to hear a gentleman speak, and David Walker said he was like United States comptroller. He was the CPA of the USA. For under Clinton and Bush, his job was to come together and say, hey, he'd meet with his team and go tell them, hey, you're doing a good job. You need to fix this. And he said, listen, in 2008, he started touring the country. We're in front of Congress. We have to double taxes or deficit will go up $2 trillion a year. And they said, there's no way. And nobody wants to run for office. We're going to double taxes. So they didn't do that. Well, it kept going up and up. So you either raise tariffs on like China, and I'm not saying Trump's the solution or not. I don't care about politics one way or the other. But you either start tariffing other countries, or like when John Deere wants to leave and do business elsewhere and bring it in here because it's cheaper, you either got to tariff the shit out of these people, or you got to tax the hell out of Americans. But something's got to give. So that's the biggest concern I have: is how long can this bull run last when it's built on smoke and mirrors? And any moron that doesn't realize that, it's like, how do people not get this?
How do you stay updated with trends and changes like rapid fire to ensure your presentations? And I'm talking presentation wise, but how do you ensure that you remain relevant?
I'll tell you. So we taught workshops on retirement planning, income planning, and then I started realizing we're really good at growing clients' money to a certain degree. We don't take risks, but within reason. We're good at protecting it from market volatility, at least a large portion of it. But the one thing I realized is we have a silent partner in everything we do. It's called the government, the IRS. So right now taxes seem high when people ask you, but the truth is they're the lowest they've been, except for maybe other 2 times in history. So the concern is, okay, taxes. What are they expecting to do? Well, they need to double them. I don't think they're going to double, but they're talking about going to a tax bracket 25, 63, and 88. If that sounds unreasonable, right after World War II, the federal tax 94%, the highest. 60 was 91. The 70s was in the 70s. In all those years, it was 26 was the lowest, and that's what matters most. So we're starting to do a lot of tax planning with clients. I'm teaching a class for my clients this weekend. Saturday, I'm teaching a 2-hour class. I teach it at a school myself and an attorney at a college around here. It's 2 3-hour classes. But frankly, I'm not going to have my clients that are existing clients pay because they care. They're like family. So we invited about 100 that would really benefit, because I got 100 clients that are trying to survive. They're not worried about tax savings, I got another 100 that they came on board when I was in my 20s. It's business. But then there's 150 that came on board in my 30s and older, and when I was sober. And this time around, it wasn't about dollars and cents. It was about relationships. Because I realized it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're not going to be happy. I mean, I can give you your dream house on an island with any car you want, with any meal you want. But if you can't meet the person who made the meal, you can't drive around with somebody, and you can't go to the beach with somebody, you're lonely. So, and that's what I learned in jail. It's about connection. Because when I didn't have connection, I didn't give a shit. I wasn't worried about when I missed my car, my house. I just missed having somebody to talk to and laugh with. So we teach in tax classes Saturday for our clients. I'm constantly doing things cutting edge. We have like 46 classes a year for clients. I spend time learning a lot. But a lot of the game doesn't change if you want the truth. It comes down to the same thing. The markets are cyclical. People need to make sure they outpace inflation. They need to protect a portion of money, get secure income. So things change, but they don't change. The only thing that changes is taxes, inflation, but you can plan for those.
How do you integrate your sense of purpose? In addition to staying current in trends, how do you integrate your sense of purpose and connection with divinity and humanity in your work?
When I was younger, I used to charge a certain amount of fees. I used to see clients once a year. Now, before each client, I pray for them, and that might sound corny. But I say, God, let me be a service to this client. Take my selfishness out of this. Let me just, if I can help them and grow our business, great. If not, let them leave with some value. And so that, lead is serve. In fact, my card that I have, a little card that every so often I'll send a note to a client. It says the Gandhi quote: "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." And when I'm doing that, whether it's here, or I'm trying to help somebody who's trying to get recovery, or a guy who's trying to grow the business or overcome a divorce, or whatever it is, I'm not thinking of me. When I'm not thinking about me, life goes a hell of a lot better.
Tell me a little more about the transformative journey and
Okay,
how it, how it's
that,
influenced your professional life and your personal life.
so it's funny when you think you're bottoming out, it's over. You lost everything. But the truth is, if you're willing to, I say life's like a boxing match. If you don't go down, you hang in there until the end of that round. You might knock the person out the other next round, right? But if you fold, you'll never know. So I remember being at the bar and be like, I don't want to give up. Like I don't know what's going to come out of life, but I just don't want to give up. And I started praying and visualization. I'm big on visualization. If you visualize something, I don't care what the fuck you visualize, you will have it. It's not a question, it's a fact. At one point, I had no money. I was walking to the gym every day. A guy gave me a membership to a gym. I'd walk on the tracks, listen to my headphones, and I'd watch this. There was a video, I Need a Doctor by Dr. Dre, and he had this Ferrari. And I said, someday I'm going to have that Ferrari. After I build a house and pay it off, and I do this and do that. So sure enough, years later, I built the house, I paid it off, I funded my retirement, and I'd put money away a little at a time, and somebody came into my life who had the exact one I wanted, sold to me used for a dirt cheap price, and I was like, I'm buying it, fuck it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really care for it anymore because it's like anything, it's stuff you don't really need. But I visualized the house being made. I could have told you exactly where I was going to live. When I went to look at the house, they said, well, that land sold. I want to build, but you can have this one. I said to the lady, no. I have a good feeling about that. When people lose their finance, you're back out, call me. And they did 2 weeks later. I didn't look at another house after that. I think you got to follow your intuition when you really got to visualize and push through. So I was at the bottom. I had nothing but prayer, visualization, and journaling. Because when you're in a jail cell, there aren't a lot of things. Then I went to a court alternative program where you go for 90 days. If you F up, they send you back to jail. And one lady said to me, my counselor, you ever see The Sopranos? You ever see the episode where he takes his kid to look at the old house and there's like that crack lady and he's like, that's a crack whore. My counselor there was a former crack whore and she looked like that. That's why I'm saying it, literally. And she's like, I want you to pray to God every night. I'm doing myself, I said, no, I'm not praying to God. She goes, no, well, you're going to pray to God. I said, where was God when I was a kid when somebody put cigarettes on my arm? Where was he here? Where was he there? I go, I'm done. And she goes, you're going to pray to God? I go, I'm not. She goes, at least journal to God. I go, no. She goes, I'm calling you PO. You'll go back to jail. I go, all right, I'll journal to God. Started doing it every night. And the first week it was like, F you, whatever you have, F that. She told me to do that. She goes, right from the heart. If you're angry, a week later, I had to go visit my family. I wrote, hey, it was nice to see my parents. They seem like they're healing from this. A week later, it was like, hey, these kids that I'm in this activity with, they're young and they annoy me. I actually find them funny. And then I've written that letter every night since then. I mean, I might have missed one or two, but pretty much for the last 12 to 15 years, I've been doing that letter. I do things. My journey really began with just like alone. And when I first was alone, I was trading my house back from my townhouse at the time from the bank in foreclosure. I would rehearse my workshops to my dog. I did everything. I just rehearsed. I was always doing preparation. So when it was game time, I was on. And a lot of it was prayer, meditation, and visualization. I mean, I have a set process. When I coach a guy, I don't care what you're trying to hit for numbers. We'll get there. Tell me what your morning looks like. Like you just said, I get up at 5:10, I'm working out. If you did, right there, somebody's going to be successful because they boom from the second they wake up. Some people say, I wake up and I lay there with anxiety. I've done that, but it's useless.
What inspired you to make positive impact to focus on making positive impacts, particularly on those people struggling with either depression, anxiety, or addiction?
I've been through it all. I mean, I was diagnosed bipolar, and I had such ups and downs and depressions and suicidal thoughts, and and I was in a really bad situation in terms of relationship, and trying to get out of it. I sat in it for years and stuff. But like, I was miserable. I was, and with the drugs and everything else, it was just so much pain. And then once I learned, like I call my show "Cracking the Code," because once I learned, hey, if I do this, this, and this, these are the results. And then I realized, like, it's like gravity. But I drop a penny, you drop a penny. It doesn't matter. I'm not unique. And it works the same for everyone. So I started applying these spiritual principles, and they worked. And I'm like, shit, I got to share these. So I shared it with just other guys I knew. I wasn't charging them or anything. One guy's like, you should charge me. I'm like, nah. And I got referred to guys. Can you coach me? I need this, this, and this. I'm like, I don't have the time for that. And he's like, well, what if I paid you? And I'm like, and he goes, listen, I go, why don't we do this? I won't take money from you. What did you make last year? He said, $190, 200, whatever it was. I said, how much do you grow each year? He said, anywhere from like 4 to 6%. So we'll say you grew by 10% next year. So we went up to 210. The first 210 you keep, but everything over that I want 20% of. That way you don't pay if you don't make money. And he made like another 200,000 over that. And then he had ready to check 40 grand. He was hesitant. I'm like, bullshit, I did this free. I rolled the dice. You had nothing to lose. But the thing is, people are funny like that. Now I charge it monthly because I'm like, I'm not doing this. But it started with something like that. I was like, hold on, if I can get this guy who's never broken 200 in his whole career, if I can get him to 250 and then next thing it was at 4 something, I was like, and he's not unique and I'm not unique. This thing can be multiplied. And I just started coaching more guys. I won't lie to you, I don't take on 10, 15 because I talk to my guys every week for an hour. I mean, I put in some time. So I do prep for them. So I make sure I'm adding value. Like, hey, what are you doing? How many calls? Some guys take on 100 people and they don't service anyone.
With respect to the future, what are your thoughts of the future of the financial industry? And are there any emerging trends or technology tips that you're particularly excited about?
It's weird because you look at the S&P 500 last year, all the stocks were down except for 7. But the 7 that were up were home runs, right? So the S&P finished up even though not 493 stocks were down for the year. So those big 7, it's like hard to knock them. You get NVIDIA, you got Apple. It's hard to criticize those and say, don't put money there. And I'm not a stock picker, but I will tell you, like, I'm reluctant to put money at things when they're this high because a lot of my stock tips I learned from a client of mine. She's a very savvy young lady. Her mother taught her how to pick stocks. And so we don't even handle that part. The guy who handles the stocks for us doesn't even handle that. She does her own stock picking. She got at Netflix at 4, sold at 700. That's a pretty sizable gain. She had to pay a couple $100,000 in taxes and she's frustrated. I was like, are you kidding me? So my thought of the trends are, right now is an all-time high to use indexing tools for the insurance industry. So we were doing a lot of that. So a tool that says, okay, you get a cap. So you get 0 to 10 at the S&P. And you lock it in the next year. So if I put 100, the next year, if it goes up 20, I only get 10. But the next year, if it drops 40, I'm locked in. The caps used to be like 5. Now they're at 8 to 10. They're home runs. So we use a ton of that. We're doing some income tools where they just turn on income. We're doing some tax-free planning with life insurance. Our portfolio manager is doing something. I'm not going to say we're not. I'm just going to say that it's risky right now. I'm going to be honest. I think it's very volatile. It doesn't make sense to me. I tell people this: if I can't explain to you why something's doing it, why do it? I mean, can you honestly explain why the market's as high? They're inflating because of an election year. I can give you the bullshit behind it, but logistically, I'm like, this country, people are working, but they're taking jobs that they're not happy with. People aren't spending like they used to, so that doesn't make sense. We have the all-time highest credit card debt we've ever had, the all-time highest government debt. Like, where does it go? And they're trying to forgive college loans and bullshit. I mean, where does it end?
How do you see your role evolving in the coming years, and how do you see yourself continuing to make an impact?
It's a good question. So I think I mentioned you before. My daughter has autism, so a big part of my role is to be there to cultivate her, help her grow, just be there to help make sure she gets where she needs to be. Professionally, like in the financial services industry, my goal is to make sure people have secure retirement income. Make sure that when the inflation bumps hits or the stock market volatility hits, that they have some money that's protected from that. Not all the money, but a good portion. To serve, and to pay it forward, right? That saying, to whom much is given, much is expected. I'm a guy with track marks in his arm, driving the car I want, going to the house I want. And more importantly than the stuff, the bullshit, I'm good with me. I wake up, I always say, if this relationship's right, these are right. If I'm good with God, I'm good with everybody. And if I'm not good with somebody, and then they don't like me, fuck them. It's not my business. But if I'm not good with God and I'm on edge with people, then that's my business. But if I'm doing the right thing and I know I'm living right. So I think right now my role is to just pay it forward in any capacity I can. Right now we set up a scholarship fund. My daughter goes to a school for autistic kids. It's a preschool and kindergarten. It's outrageously expensive. I'm not gonna lie. It's more than any college I've ever heard of. But I would think to myself, what would happen if I had her during my addiction years? She wouldn't have got to go there. You know what I mean? She got this version of me. It's very easy. You go to a nice house, there's no debt, there's this, and you got to pull it back in. The version when Ryan was sleeping on the streets begging for money, that's a different version. So what can I do to help somebody in that spot to get their autistic kid an education? So I went to the owner of school and I said, I want to set up a scholarship. She said, okay, what are you looking to do? I said, I'll pay one kid's tuition every year. Because and then maybe my daughter's out, maybe I'll pay 2, but I'm not dropping $200,000 a year on tuitions right now. But I have kid expenses. It's something that it's important to me because my daughter went there. She didn't talk, she didn't hug, and she really couldn't play well with other people. Now my daughter doesn't stop. I have a client class this Saturday. She'll come to my class. Here's a 4-year-old kid that's supposed to have autism. Be running around hugging people, talking. She doesn't speak well, but she speaks a lot. Just not too articulate. Her jaw's not that strong. She's loving. She's affectionate. We'll lay in bed. She'll rub my face. Daddy, I love you. That's like hitting the fucking lottery. A year and a half ago, that didn't exist. So if I can give that to another family, that's probably my biggest purpose.
Let's say somebody wants to get in touch with you. What is it? How would they do? Someone's listening or watching right now, and they're like, I want to connect with this guy. What's the best way to do that?
So I tell folks, the site is crackingthecodewithRyanSkinner.com. They can hit me up on Instagram. I won't lie to you. I don't do social media. I tell people this: you want to be successful. I'm like I watched a thing one day with Muhammad Ali. He said, "What makes you successful?" He says, "I don't have girls. I don't have drugs. I don't have alcohol. I'm by 9 alone." I'm very rigid with my time now. There's somebody who runs my social media, and if somebody reaches out, they'll have me go on and I'll respond. I always respond. I'll tell you, because if you're out there and you're in pain, you don't have to go on. Some people think, oh, if I reach out, this guy's going to charge me. Yeah, I'll be honest. I have some clients pay me $20,000 a month for their coaching, and I have one guy who's I'm doing it free, and he's like, "Well, what's in it for you?" And I'm like, "You'll never understand." Like,
Right.
gosh,
I understand.
yeah, you understand, but when I sponsor guys and I help them get over, so they're like, "How does it benefit you?" I'm like, "It benefits me more than you because the spiritual charge when you see God come in. So if I can have an impact on somebody's life, it's not always about dollars and cents."
All right. Well, I really appreciate it. This was a fantastic interview.
I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, you have a good story. I mean, the talk we had last week, I was dying. I got to tell you, man, you're a great host. 2, you ask great questions, which makes me realize you're a good coach because you ask things that are like, hey, how can I growing questions? So many people ask questions that are just dollars and cents, but you're asking expansion questions, and that's next level. So I think this is great.
Well, that's where inappropriate growth came from. Somebody who I really respected introduced me to some other people, and I was looked up to this guy. And the guy that's introducing me says, "Okay, this is Paul. He's a lot. Got to, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but he might be your shot of tequila." Kind of, just making a joke. But he said, "Paul has an inappropriate relationship with growth. If you don't want to grow in some way, you're probably not going to get along with him." And I just owned that. That was just, I love that.
But your story is awesome. I mean, like really awesome. And I think what's nice is what I like about somebody is I don't care who somebody is, who they're not. I mean, I just cook to do naturally. But even if I don't, if they're fucking authentic and they're them, it's a home run. Because that they're there positively in your life. When people are fake and they're saying the right things, I don't want to hear that shit. I'd rather hear somebody say inappropriate stuff. I mean, I drop F-bombs in client meetings. People look at me like, well, it's my fucking office. I can understand if you don't like it. There's probably 5 other guys that won't do that. Cool.
For those of you listening and for those of you watching, and I'm sure Ryan will back me up on this, if you want to grow, chances are good you're going to have to do something inappropriate.
Yep. Gotta get out of yourself. Brother, thank you so much.